Hello and welcome back to another episode of Farewell Evangelion, Neon Genesis Evangelion podcast. We're going through the series bit by bit. My name is Keith and I'm going through for my last time. And as always, I'm joined by Peter.
Hello!
Who is going through for his first. Today we ended up reading through the 6th volume of Angelic Days, originally released December 17th in 2005. And this one is really just a bunch of short stories showing what all the characters did in the in-between spot between the leaving Japan to them re-meeting in 7 years' time, and a little short story of during the time there.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of vignettes in a sense.
Yeah, a whole bunch of short little stories showing kind of this is what's going on with these characters. So,
I think in this one you also got partial points for your guess.
So it was. So I had said it was Kaoru, either in the future or the past, and him interacting with more members of Shinji's bloodline, which Shinji is a part of Shinji's bloodline, so technically true. He is clearly still invested in the Shinji-Asuka relationship.
Yeah.
Also, I'm going to give myself also partial credit for time shenanigans, where it was different periods of time over that time skip we've already seen.
Yeah.
That being said, I can be honest with myself and admit that I did incorrectly interpret this one, so I'm only going to give myself a C+.
That's it.
But yeah, so 4 different short stories plus bonus mini stories.
And it's kind of, the way it's presented is kind of in chronological order with jumps, except for the last part.
Yeah, so first one we have is Misato and Kaji, and it's literally just the week after Shinji fucking ran to the dock, and apparently Shinji didn't just run to the dock and have Asuka jump off the boat into Shinji's arms. Shinji then got on the boat with Asuka and fucking left for Germany, which we've now had it confirmed she is 100% headed towards Germany.
Yeah, they were in Hawaii for a little bit.
Yeah, they went Japan to Hawaii and Hawaii to Germany. A week after they left, they get to Hawaii. Shinji gets kicked off the boat. Apparently Kaji gave him a stern talking to, which, based on my knowledge of Kaji's character in other series...
Probably gave him a high five and a cigarette.
Yeah, pretty, like, have your first taste of beer, kiddo.
Did I ever tell you about watermelons?
Let me tell you about melons, Shinji. See how that happens, and then this time period, Misato also gets a letter from her old college club that she was a part of with Kaji, and it gets her feeling nostalgic for her past time with Kaji, and like...
That she didn't even remember she was fucking dating him.
Yeah, so she ends up calling him up, and she asks him... Well, first of all, she brings this up to Ritsuko, because Ritsuko's there with... No, it's not Ritsuko, it's Yui who's there?
No, Ritsuko.
Okay, it is Ritsuko. So she brings it up to Ritsuko, because Ritsuko's there when she gets the letter. And she's reading through it, and Ritsuko's like, oh yeah, Kaji was a part of that group. Weren't you guys dating? And Misato's like, what? Oh yeah, I mean, I guess it probably looked like that to like an outside observer or something like that. And then she ends up calling Kaji up and asking, hey, were we dating? And he's like, kinda, I guess. Like, do you remember why we broke up? And he's like, alright, here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna hang up the phone now. And then, like...
I've left a set of clues.
Misato, like, is thinking about it later, and she gets real pissed off at him for answering non-committally to the question of, were we dating? Like, what is that answer all about? It's like, you didn't even remember yourself. Why are you giving him a hard time for not giving you a definitive answer? Clearly, he hasn't thought about it as much, except clearly he
They probably don't remember because Kaoru was very integral to the relationship.
Yeah, that's why it's all fuzzy flashbacks. But we find out that Misato ends up leaving to work at NERV. Kaji ends up quitting school to follow her to NERV. And they're at a fireworks show when they're discussing their plans, and they decide to go for it with a long-distance relationship and see how it'll work. And then apparently, the relationship ends up petering out, and they kind of stop calling each other, except Misato makes it very clear that it is Kaji who stops calling her. So their relationship goes poorly, but there are strong hints that they are rekindling that relationship a little bit, because they still know each other so very well, and they're kind of building up that relationship again.
Yeah, she just kind of asked him on a date.
Yeah. So yeah, there's nothing explicit is said, but it seems like they are getting back towards that relationship.
Yeah, and also, this is also, Shinji coming back and they're taking care of him again. And I think showing him the fireworks is a nice little callback to the protected the city scene from the original run.
Yeah, here's the city that you protected, and it's now them up on the cliff looking over the fireworks. Being like, you feel good about what you did? You feel good about trapezing over to Hawaii with your girlfriend?
On my dime!
So yeah, that's what's going on there. Second story is all about Ray and Ritsuko, that classic relationship we're all very familiar with, and how much love and respect there is between those two characters.
And definitely not multiple attempted murders.
Yep. Both ways, too. But no, what matters here is they have a mutual respect because they're both in love with the man who does not love them back at this timeline.
Specifically an Akari man.
Yeah, specifically an Akari. So we get a little bit of a flashback, and this is the one part that's kind of out of sequence chronologically a little. It's when Ritsuko, as a high schooler, first meets Gendo and realizes she met him too late in life because he already had a woman on his arm.
If only I was 8.
Yeah. Which is weird because, like, he's a grown-ass adult who's in charge of the entire Girahim at this point, is what it probably is. And is married, and she's a high schooler who's pining after him and, like, builds up this entire relationship in her head, which I'm not saying that doesn't happen in the real world. It's just weird that, like, she's convinced that if he hadn't have been married at that point, if they had met earlier in life when he was in university and she was in, like, elementary school, then they would be together or something.
If only an Eldritch God was there to convince us to be together.
Yeah. So we get that little bit of backstory, but it's mostly just building up the kind of situation with parallels between Ritsuko and Ray, where Ritsuko met the man that she ended up falling in love with, but unfortunately he was already had that established relationship with Yui.
Yeah.
Similarly, Ray met Shinji, and while they didn't have a romantic relationship, they were clearly already bound for one with Asuka and Shinji.
In a sense.
And so that's the kind of parallels between those two. And
also, this kind of confirms that Ray was actually the one that went to the United States.
Yeah, because they're there doing like symposiums in LA. To be fair, Ray might not have been the one who went to the United States in the first place, but she is in the United States now because of the fact that she's there for conferences, because apparently her dad is very immaculate and important for studies and talking about their conferences.
And it's implied, because they each went to a different continent in a sense.
Yeah.
It's also implied later on that Toji was in Africa.
Yeah. Africa and also like India. He was around that area. Or not India.
Well, he would have been Asia because...
he was in Singapore for that when it was happening. Something happened in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah. I mean, he also, I guess, could have been Oceania. But
yeah.
I think Japan would have also covered that spot.
Yeah, so...
Kensuke was either in South America or Australia. Or, I guess, if Toji was in Australia, Kensuke could have been in Africa.
Yeah, Kensuke also could have been the one who was shipped to the Antarctic. Who knows? So yes, we get a little bit of Ritsuko talking to Ray about, like, well, first of all, Ritsuko sees a letter that Shinji wrote to Ray that Ray refuses to open because who knows what it says. Maybe it says he doesn't have feelings for her. You know, the thing he openly in person told her before she left for this trip.
I mean, I was going to cry. I was like, Ray, this is the only way I can contact you. Quick, I've been kidnapped and I'm in this location.
Yeah.
If they don't get the money, or you save me in 3 days.
Yeah, so it's Ray refusing to read the letter. And Ritsuko, like, calling her out and, like, what if it's not that? What if it's good news? And Ray's like, I can't...
What if she's been kidnapped?
I can't be bothered to read that. I can't risk hearing bad news from Shinji.
Oh no, Shinji's dead.
So Ray's also talking about how she's looking forward to them getting back together. Ritsuko asks the very important question of, do you regret falling in love with Shinji? And that's where we get the, no, of course not. Love is love. Why would you regret feeling love?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the meat and potatoes of the Ray Ritsuko storyline. Next up we have Toji and Hikari. And this is the one where they start to punch you in the feels. Because it's Hikari just being, like, sad about the fact that, like, they have this standing tradition of every Friday at 10 p.m. Toji will call Hikari, they'll talk for a little bit.
Which is why I think he's most likely in the Africa, Australia area.
Yeah. So he calls her, he clearly has some shit going on, but doesn't want to burden her with it, so he ends up cutting off the phone call short. And she's getting really sad because, like, it feels like they're growing distant after multiple years apart. And then he sends her a picture, and she says, "Oh man, he's got dark," because clearly he's been spending a lot of time with the sun. But then she says he's gotten too dark, and I don't know how I feel about that line.
Oh no, this is Bardial Toji.
Yeah,
getting edgy.
So she ends up filming herself. Oh well, sorry. First of all, what happens is oil tanker explodes in the Indian Ocean, and she knows that's around the area where he is because his last letter was from Singapore, and she's worried that he got sent in to deal with that, and it was another angel. So she calls him as soon as she sees the news, and he informs her that nope, that's not what's going on. He can't pilot anymore because he's an adult now, and as we already know, EVAs don't like adults.
Yeah, just like Trix, it's for kids.
It's for kids. And he goes on a big spiel about, like, this is the one thing he's done with his life and he can't do it anymore, and he's feeling useless and depressed, and, like, we've all been there before. I've been there before. I don't want to speak for anyone else. So she does what any good long-distance girlfriend would do at that point, and she finds her old video recorder and buys a VHS tape and records herself giving him affirmations of, "I believe in you, what you're doing is really important."
Which, VHS tape and video recorder, and they're 14 in 2015.
So
this is hypothetically...
Well, this is also, as we know, because she sends him that tape, he doesn't call her next time, and then he comes back, like, a couple days later.
I would say this between 2015 and 2022.
I'm saying this is the later end of that spectrum, because he comes back at the end of this, and they all come back around 7 years later. So this is probably, like, 2020-ish, and she's finding the video recorder and the fucking VHS tapes to record herself, which means he probably got a tape, and, like, the reason he didn't call her that Friday was he was fucking hunting a VHS player to be able to watch back this tape.
There's gonna be a VHS tape somewhere that can get this playthrough.
But yeah,
a VCR is needed.
She's telling him that he's an important person doing important work. Which
this book was written in 2006.
Yeah, I think the worst part about this, like, unfortunately, is, like, he just called her as, like, "I can't do my job anymore. I'm going through, like, a really tough time right now." And her response is, "The job that you're doing is very important, so good on you for doing it." It's like, were you not listening? I'm not doing it. I can't do it anymore. That's the fucking existential.
Yes, that whole job is your life, and you should be really motivated to continue doing it.
Yeah.
Are you even listening to what I'm saying?
I've gone through a lot of really traumatic stuff right now, Hikari. Yeah, of course. Just keep doing your job. That's what's most important. I can't do my job anymore. As long as you keep doing your job, you still have value. That's all that matters.
Your value's tied directly to the job that you are doing.
Yeah. If you're not producing, you're not worth anything.
Here, find a VCR.
So Toji immediately gets on a plane and returns to Japan and hugs her. It's like, thanks for that.
Yeah, I needed that. That pep talk really got me.
That depressing ass pep talk. Really helpful. And so then, fourth and kind of final storyline is Shinji and Asuka back together after years apart. And they're fighting immediately.
Yeah.
Because of course they are. Yeah. Because Shinji didn't tell Asuka about some of the work he did over the time. Like, he kept sending her letters, but just didn't tell her where he was sending letters from, because he got sent off to a special lab to do work there.
He does science now.
Yeah, he does science now, much like his father. And he doesn't want Asuka to worry about the science that he's doing.
Yeah.
So he doesn't tell her about
because we saw what science Gendo's done. And if he's doing science like his father, I can see where the red flags are coming.
Yeah, of course. He doesn't want her to worry. She is even more worried now. And they end up fighting, and then Kaoru poofs back into existence after Asuka runs away from Shinji. And he's like, "Hey, real quick.
You don't know me, and I don't know you, and I'm a high school student, and don't worry about it, but..."
And, like, the best part about this is Shinji's like, "Are you sure I don't know you? Because, like, I really feel like I know you." But, like, Kaoru is a high school student, which means that, like, if Shinji thinks he knows this person, it means, like, when he was in high school, this person was, like, probably in, like, elementary school, and Shinji had a deep personal relationship with his elementary school.
Do you have, like, a relative from, like, 7 years ago that had the same name as you?
And then also from, like, another 20 years before that, who also had the same name as you, and same face, and, threatened my dad a lot and told him to fuck my mother. But yeah, so Kaoru was just like, "Hey, but, like, you care about each other, don't you? So why the fuck does anything else matter?" And so Shinji tracks down Asuka, and then they admit that they don't want to fight during their short time together, because who knows how long they'll be together. But they're going to come back and do the fireworks again at some point in the future. And Shinji's like, all I want to do is, like, hang out with you and talk with you and hold hands. And Asuka's like, just hold hands? And Shinji's like, what? And then they kiss off screen.
Yeah. Partially off screen.
We see, like, his jawline, but, like, it cuts off before we get to faces kissing.
Yeah.
Because that's inappropriate for children.
Exactly.
Murder and trauma, perfectly appropriate for children. Kissing, very inappropriate.
Well, that's like the whole point of Evangelion.
Yeah. Well then.
And then we get the little short story, which is them doing career days.
Yeah.
Or deciding what to do.
I'm going to be honest. The version I was reading had, like, the first page of that, and then didn't have the rest of it, and I just couldn't be bothered to track it down.
Oh, there's the whole thing about how Asuka was going to be a teacher, and Hikari implies that Asuka would be a horrible teacher because she would physically abuse the students by smacking them over the head when they got things wrong.
Yeah,
and then she has to tutor Rei, and Rei is constantly holding a powered book over her head just in case.
Nice. I like it.
Because Rei's going to fail otherwise.
Of course,
she has to get tutored by Asuka. And Asuka is actually only good at math, apparently. Because she says, I hate anything that has multiple answers. I'd rather just have the one answer.
That's fair. I can relate to Asuka on that point.
Yeah. Also, Shinji looks into doing science because his mother does science and his father does science. But Shinji also points out that Gendo doesn't look like he does science. He doesn't look the part. And the camera's like, interesting. He does science, and I'm sure he likes books. And Shinji's like, how do you know that? He's like, stop.
Yeah, I just, like, if I had to guess, in his first semester of junior high, he checked out 2 library cards worth of books. Also, one of them was about cats. This is purely me guessing based on how he looks.
Yeah. And that was pretty hopeful still in direction.
Fair enough.
Asuka will be a math teacher, and Shinji will be a scientist.
Shinji will do science, much like Gendo, which is very terrifying to me.
Yeah.
Well then, that is the end of Angelic Days.
So what do you think of Volume 6, and I guess on top of it, what do you think of the greater Angelic Days storyline?
I enjoyed the little, like, short stories, the tie-togethers, this is what's going on with different characters, gives me a bit more closure. I really enjoyed Angelic Days as a whole.
Yeah.
Before we started doing Angelic Days, I don't know how much trauma I was ready to go through, and was not looking forward to doing more Evangelion, to be completely honest with you. You are fans, I am sorry. I would never stop this podcast. I would sooner stop my own life and then find a way to keep doing the podcast for the afterlife. But I just wasn't ready for more trauma in the form of Evangelion, so having this nice, light palate cleanser was very good for me.
That's fair. And if I would say there's any kind of downside to a lot of the Neon Genesis like spin-off stuff, is you kind of have to know the main storyline to get a lot of stuff here. Like, it's still good, but it feels like it's lacking unless you have that foundation of the main Neon Genesis storyline.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to be honest, that first chapter when everyone's calling Kaoru Oak for being that weird friend who says all that weird shit, that wouldn't have meant anything to me if we hadn't have gone through all of Evangelion.
Also, it never directly states that Kaoru's an angel in this season.
No! It's, like, very heavily implied, but never explicitly stated.
You know, the closest you get is like, wait, is Kaoru like a god?
Yeah.
Is he the god?
He has godlike power. He says he's close friends with the first being made in God's own image, but I don't know much beyond that.
Yeah. And that's kind of the problem, is things that you just do not get, and I feel like leaves the story feel like it's not answering things otherwise, which is a negative towards it, of course, but once you go through Neon Genesis, there's not really in a spin-off story that I think you couldn't go into and fully grasp what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Angelic Days in itself is just a fun spin-off based on that really short moment of, this could be another possibility. Slice of life, Shinji, from the original Neon Genesis Evangelion storyline.
Yeah, where your friend Asuka and Rei shows up one day and runs into you while having toast in your mouth.
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty solid. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, Angelic Days is definitely one of my more favorite manga, although not my favorite manga spin-off. We'll be getting to that one soon enough.
Quite soon, potentially. Who knows how soon?
Yeah.
Well then.
Was there any stick-out moments or parts from the storyline that you really liked? Like, Volume 6 is very much the Lord of the Rings ending, as you mentioned a few times.
Yeah.
Where it's like, he in this. Where it's not the end of the story, but it's finishing off the arcs for the characters.
Yeah, it's putting nice, neat little bows on all the different storylines.
But was there like something about Angelic Days that you specifically liked that was different, or scenes or something like that?
So as I already said, I really liked how this one was a lot lighter. One of the scenes I was particularly fond of, the setup of the scene. I wasn't so great about how it paid off, but the scene where Asuka gets sick and like Shinji spends the day at home like taking care of her and like ignoring his duty to help Kaoru out with his concert that's coming up. That whole like episode was very sweet to me, and I found it like really nice to see like they weren't dating or anything. It was just a friend who was doing his best to help out his other friend. It was a very nice chapter. And then Ray showed up and ruined it. But up until then, it was great.
One of my favorite parts from Angelic Days, which is funny, is Kaoru's monologue is like, I'm Shinji's friend, our ally.
Yeah, not
Shinji's ally.
Yeah, I'll be honest, throughout this, Kaoru putting Ray explicitly on his shit list was pretty great.
And that's, it's come up a few times before, last, like, why are people like Kaoru so much? And I think that's just the thing. It's like, as you get more into the spin-off stories, Kaoru just gets better.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of those ones where, like, when I was reading Volume 4 and, like, he was thinking through who's the most precious person to him, I kind of joked about it earlier on when we were going through the original Neon Genesis anime, but this one, if Shinji actually had said the person who's most precious to me is Kaoru, no one else, I kind of would have been on board with it, because Kaoru was very explicitly on Shinji's side for this story. No one else. It's just Shinji's. To the point where he forced his parents to fuck to make Shinji.
Exactly.
Kind of gives you a bit of a vibe. Also, one of the things we talked about during Rebuild in general was the idea of Kaoru going back and having, like, affecting minor changes on the different loops to, like, see how they change things. Like, this one, cat girls exist. Does that make Shinji happy? No, it doesn't. Alright, new loop.
New problem, though.
Yeah. So, this one kind of gives you a little bit more of that. Like, even though it's not canonical, this is how it happens, but this idea of, like, Kaoru just appearing as a mysterious stranger at different points in history, setting things up to go exactly the way he wants them to, and then erasing himself from that point in history so that the event happened, but no one's just like, there's this weird guy who shows up and makes me do things.
Yeah.
A very interesting idea of, like, how Kaoru has an impact on all these different timelines.
Yeah, it's not so much him, like, writing the code of the world, but he's able to manipulate events in the background.
Like, I don't know, maybe one timeline he, like, finds Asuka's mom while she's pregnant and, like, whispers in her ear a bunch, but, like, your child's the worst, you should kill her, and also make clones of her, and let's see if the clones are friendly with my friend Shinji. Also ignore that last part, but, like, yeah, clone your daughter, and then, like, go crazy and shit.
Also, you won't remember any of this afterwards.
All you're gonna remember is that you need to clone your daughter and then go crazy. Alright, cool, let's go. Ready, break!
Go Angels!
Go team! Yeah, that's... Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's just, the spin-offs definitely do the fun thing of adding in gaps in information and stuff, where you kind of like, well, this is a possibility for Outward.
Yeah, the way
Kaoru's time travel thing and, like, dimension jumping, this kind of gives a, well, maybe this is how it works.
Yeah. And, like, if you think about it, because some people might have issue with, like, Kaoru having the ability to exist before First Impact or some shit like that. But, like, Kaoru has been directly involved in at least one instrumentality, so, like, much like Ethereal Ray popping up around the time, we could have Ethereal Kaoru, except Ethereal Kaoru, because he's Kaoru, actually, like, fucking talks to people and, like, has conversations. So, like, I have no issues with this being a thing, and also, I fully recognize that this isn't one of the, like, canon Anno written storylines, so, like, this might not be how it actually is written, but it gives you an option of, like, a headcanon of this could be how you choose to interpret different stories in the canon that aren't explicitly stated for us.
Exactly.
Well then.
Yeah, I guess with that wraps up Volume 6 and Angelic Days. So, of course, if you'd like to follow the podcast, we upload every Wednesday on all podcasting platforms as well as YouTube with the episodes going up. We also have an Instagram channel where we update with facts and little tidbits of the series as we go through and what we're doing on that, as well as polls here and there on the weekends. If you'd like to contact us, you can also reach us at whatismypodcastbook@gmail.com. You can send us questions, comments, anything about the series. Also, like, favorite, review, subscribe, pass it on to a friend. Word of mouth helps spread this podcast to other people, and share it with other people getting into the series as well as Evangelion fans. They can relate to either me or Peter. There's not really much else you can do.
If you got like new people getting into it, let them go through it with me, and then they'll understand they're not alone in feeling what all the time.
Or the knots and brackets.
Yeah. I'm just remembering back to where I was when we started this fucking podcast, and like having a podcast I could listen to where someone else was clearly as confused as I was would have been very helpful for me. Let me know everything's going to be all right.
Exactly. And with that, we'll let it be known now, but we will be going into one of my personal favorite spin-off manga series, the Shinji Ikari Raising Project, moving forward, and the full 18 volumes of that one. Same as this one, we'll be doing each episode as a volume. But of course, as always, Peter, what can we expect from Neon Genesis Evangelion, the Shinji Ikari Raising Project, Volume 1?
Alright, so in Volume 1, we're going to start back off at the beginning, where everyone's just happy little school students going on. I'm going to have to assume a lot of chaos, but in particular, love dodecahedrons.
And plenty